I turned 65 last month, and I didn't expect it to feel the way it feels. 65 is one of those milestone birthdays, isn't it? It used to be, and it still is in some people's minds, the year that you become old. The year that you become a pensioner, a senior if you're living in the US. And I have to say, despite all my work about self-ageism and thinking differently about aging, I still had the vestiges of that stereotype in my head. The last 2 years have been difficult for me physically. The body definitely is feeling as if it's 65 and is feeling as if it's going into a different phase of my life. But there are other things, compensations for that I knew about, but didn't really fully feel, didn't really embody until the last couple of years. So that's what I'd like to talk about today. If you haven't met me before, my name's Jo Blackwell. I run the Midlife and Beyond community on Substack and YouTube. And I wrote the book, Aging Wonderfully Well, the good news about midlife and growing older, which brings all my research together. I've been wondering, what's next? Now that I'm going into this third age, what's next for me? Because we've been brought up to think that inevitably we're going to decline. We're going to decline physically and mentally. We become less and less relevant. We become invisible to ourselves even. Well, to hell with that. That's not happening, not on my watch. As is often the way when we start thinking about something, you get little whispers, don't you? Little nudges from the universe, maybe. Or maybe it's just your reticular activating system seeing the things that you're thinking about more and noticing them. Because they were always there, but you only notice things once they're in your attention zone, don't you? Whatever it is, there have been several whispers that have been coming to me to back up this feeling that actually I'm going into a phase of my life that could be the best yet. And that's not meaning to be a Pollyanna about the physical decline, although I'm doing a lot to reverse that and to mitigate some of that as well. That's the subject of another video. Today I want to talk about the creativity that comes, the alter still. Alter still is a German word, I believe, that describes the freedom that artists suddenly express in their work. They no longer follow trends. They don't feel the need to conform. And I think that it kind of spills over into everyday life as well. We all start to feel that actually we don't care nearly as much about what people think about us or towing the line. In the words of the famous poem, we start wearing purple, even if only metaphorically. So there are 3 whispers that I want to tell you about. 2 articles and 1 video clip that I saw. And the video clip was of Mayor Angelou being interviewed at the age of 74 by Oprah Winfrey on her Soul Sunday podcast. I've always loved Mayor Angelou's quote. She said that at 50, I began to know who I was. It was like waking up to myself. And I kind of used that as a little bit of a mantra to get myself through my 50s when they were difficult in the beginning. And I loved that. But on this interview with Oprah, she said how grateful she was to grow old. And I'm just going to read the quote to you because it's wonderful. She said, I thought the 50s were hot until I reached the 60s. The 60s are out there. Then she says that once she reached her 70s, she realised they were even better, and she urged everyone to stay alive for long enough to reach them. Isn't that marvellous? I have to say, my 60s have been far, far better than my 50s. I felt stronger physically and mentally and emotionally during my 60s because I finally know who I am and what I stand for and what I believe in and what I like to do. But I didn't quite get it until very recently about what turning 65 and going then towards those 70s and hopefully 80s and beyond, what that actually means. The second little nudge that I received was reading an article on Substack by the Happy Senior. And she was talking about an anthropologist. She was talking about an anthropologist called Alan Macfarlane, who's 84. So way past the natural age of retirement that we think of as retirement. Now, so many people, they're working to retire, aren't they? How many conversations do you hear? I've just got 5 more years to put in and I'll be 65 and I can retire. I'll get my pension or whatever. And arguments about, the pension age being pushed back aside, that's really quite a sad way to live, isn't it? That we're living for a future that might not even be ours. Anyway, back to Alan Macfarlane, gone off on a tangent there. Alan Macfarlane is still writing. He's making videos. He's still studying. He's traveling. And he's very active on social media, particularly the Chinese social media platform, whose name I have no chance of pronouncing. But he's collaborating with young people, presumably in his field. And his quote that I want to share with you today that really kind of hit me was this. And I'm sorry that I can't remember things from 1 minute to the next, but there you go. He said, "What keeps a person alive is the feeling of being needed. That someone is interested in you, that someone is curious about you." And how true is that? So many of us start to feel that we're not useful anymore. And to some extent, well, our worth doesn't depend on our youthfulness, our youthfulness or our usefulness. His retirement years have been the most productive years of his life. And I find that really encouraging because I find myself producing more and more. I produce my videos, I produce my blogs, I've written my book. I've got other books in the pipeline. And yet still, I wonder, what's next? The third thing, again from the Happy Senior on Substack, do look her up and follow her. And that's the story of Anna Mary Robertson Moses, who was known as Grandma Moses, an American folk artist. Now, Grandma Moses brought up a large family on a farm in America in the last century. At 74, I believe it was, she realised she could no longer embroider because her fingers were riddled with arthritis and she couldn't embroider anymore. So she picked up a paintbrush. She picked up a paintbrush and started painting. And by the time she was 84, 86, she'd produced over 1,500 paintings. In her 90s, she was on the cover of Time magazine because her paintings sold like hotcakes once they were discovered. She painted about the life she remembered, the life on the farm before technology. And obviously it hit a chord with so many people. It was nostalgic art, folk art. As I say, she had no training. She just picked up paints and painted for the joy of painting. She had no thought that she was going to sell her paintings. That part of the story is pure luck, certainly a fluke, because she'd put them into a local shop and somebody happened to come across them and decided that she was worthy of having an exhibition. As I get older, I find that I like to do things more slowly. I like to meander. I won't be rushed. I like to take a circuitous route. I like my quiet times where my brain can download, and that's when the creativity comes in. So I want to take a tip out of Grandma Moses's book. I want to write for the sake of writing again, for the sheer joy of it. I'm going to start writing fiction again. And I think that's probably what's next for me. I'm still going to make these videos. I'm still going to... Oh, that's a creaky chair. That wasn't me. Oh, yeah, I can do it again. It's obvious it wasn't me. Oh, this is going to be a huge edit. What I want to ask you is, whatever age you are now, What's next? Because there's always a next. There's never a full stop. We never reach the point where our life comes to a full stop. And if you want to retire and you want to just put your feet up, that's great. And all power to you. I have no problem with you or that at all. But for those of us that still have ambitions, I suppose, although my ambition isn't the same as it was. My ambition is to do with finishing a story. And of course, I want to sell my stories, because if I don't sell my stories, nobody's going to read them. And the whole point is to connect, to be needed, for someone to be curious about what you think, as Alan Macfarlane put it. Do tell me in the comments, what's next for you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment on this video. I want to tell you a little bit about Aging Wonderfully Well. So if I could just keep hold of you for 30 seconds, that would be fantastic. And I'll see you next week. If you've ever wondered whether the best years are behind you, or found yourself feeling invisible, uncertain, or simply not quite like yourself anymore, I wrote Aging Wonderfully Well for you. It's an honest, warm, hopeful guide to navigating midlife and beyond, combining the latest science with inspiring stories and practical ideas to help you see growing older in a completely different light. I'd love for you to read it. You'll find the link below.